Peace to your feet, we bringing the news. Facts stay sharp, yeah, we never confused. From the streets to the world, get the real, no cap. Breaking headlines, put the truth on the map.
Yo, fast with the facts, we don't play no games. Reporting what's real, we ain't chasing fame. Call Peace TV, stay locked, stay tuned. If you want the real talk, we deliver it soon. Call Peace TV, we bringing the news. Facts stay sharp, yeah, we never confuse.
Hey y'all, hey. Back with another video. We're gonna jump right into it because in this video we are going to listen to the testimony of the DNA analyst about finding DNA, testing DNA from items that were found and compared against Naziah and Jarvis butts. But first of all, I want to jump into, I've been thinking and I've been watching these videos and I'm like, what the fuck are we actually watching here? What are we watching? Because I'm just steady trying to figure out what is going on. I'm going to explain to you guys what they are talking about with this DNA stuff. I'm going to break it down before I play the video so you guys can see. But I just want to say, like, I'm confused at this point because I got two separate videos I'm going to show of Jarvis Butts walking into the courtroom. He is supposed to have this tattoo on his neck on the same side. But in one video, you don't see the tattoo, and in the other one, you do. And you should be able to see the tattoo on his neck on the first video that's going to play, which is this one. And you don't see the freaking tattoo. Where is the tattoo? In this one, you see it plain as day, and he's wearing the same shirt as he always wear. Where is the tattoo on his neck? Man, I know these videos been taken like months apart or whatever case may be. Gaining weight, losing weight could be a thing. But how do you lose a freaking tattoo? Just how? But anywho, we're going to jump into what we're going to be talking about today. But I just want y'all to look at these videos and tell me why we can't see the tattoo on his neck. I'm not going to put out anything of what I think. I want y'all to drop down below in the comments after I'm done with this video. They literally started out showing his face at court hearings. Then all of a sudden, they go to him wearing masks and stuff. Like, that haven't clicked to y'all. Like, why is they steady letting him wear this mask? It's not even COVID anymore. So why is he able to stand in front of victims and victim parents and stuff and hide his face? Like, it don't even make sense. Look, he's showing his face at this court hearing. This was early on. But let's keep going. So first, what you're going to hear them talk about is the YSTR testing. This testing is done when it's too much female DNA present over a male DNA. And this is the definition of what YSTR testing is. Next is the Y chromosome, and the Y chromosome is found in males. This is what determines female from a male. And this is the definition of what a Y chromosome is. Let's keep going. And then we have the X chromosome, which is the opposite from the Y chromosome. And this is the definition of what an X chromosome is. And we're about to jump into the testimony as to why I want to talk about this. So basically, me listening to the testimony, and I came up with a few things. With testing this DNA, it seems like they are saying that Jarvis has a son. That DNA was found mixed in the DNA of his and Naziah's, because they found multiple people in this DNA. which means, because they're saying the Y chromosome matches Jarvis' Y chromosome, and they are saying that you only get this chromosome from your father. So it's either, I take from it, it's either Jarvis' son or his dad DNA is this DNA. I could have took it the other way as saying that they trying to say that Nazia's baby was a male with a Y chromosome, which would be a Y chromosome. But then I went back from that because if y'all notice, you're going to hear the prosecutor try to dispute what they're saying about this Y chromosome being found that matches Jarvis's. And they're going to also put up a fight of like how DNA can be transferred. It doesn't necessarily mean that someone was sleeping with Nazia and that's why this Y chromosome was found in the DNA. So they're going to give you examples of like cutting yourself or touching a cabinet or a piece of paper and that DNA being transferred, and it can be transferred through washing clothes and all of this stuff. So that stood out to me. I don't know if anybody else caught this, but I did. So that's one of the things I want to talk about. And I know it's something to it because she's going to be questioned about the YSTR testing being done if it's suspected multiple males' DNA present. And she's going to go through this whole spiel about, well, it's another analyst that does that. I know about it, but I don't actually do it. So I can't testify and answer that question for you. So what I'm thinking is another male that's related to Jarvis as a son or his father, whose DNA is mixed with his DNA and Nazia's DNA. I don't know. This is just, y'all listen to it, and this is what I took from it. I want y'all to comment in the comments below and tell me what y'all think about this.
People's 22 right now. Tell me, what is it that like these reports just generally start with at the top?
The information that is submitted by the agency with the evidence, which is their agency number, as well as the investigating officer, and then we assign a laboratory number to the case. It also has the date received for that evidence and the date the report was completed.
And who comes up with the nature of offense? Do you list that? Does the police list that?
The agency.
Okay. And what about the victims and suspects? Who lists those?
They also list those on the paperwork when they submit the evidence.
Okay. So in record number 4, what did you do in record number 4?
I interpreted and recorded 2 items of evidence that were submitted.
What were those items of evidence?
A buccal swab from Jarvis Butts and an ID, swabs of an ID card.
And what is it that you did to them? What's the process that you did?
So I'll give you a general overview of the process. When we receive this evidence in our laboratory, it's usually in a small tube. It's cuttings or swabs from evidence. We then extract the DNA. We see how much is present, and then we make many millions of copies of that DNA. We can then get a picture of that DNA profile from the evidence or the individual, and we can compare those. So in this case, I received the buccal swab, and for a reference sample or a buccal swab or blood, known DNA from an individual, everyone has 1 or 2 what we call types at each of the locations within the DNA. So when I see 1 or 2 at one of these locations, I know that's only one person. If I'm seeing 3 or 4, 2 people in that sample. So for a reference sample, blood or a buccal swab from the inside of someone's cheek, there would only be 1 individual present because that's directly from that individual.
Okay. And what you do, your process doesn't change or alter the DNA in any way, does it?
No, everyone has their own unique DNA profile. It is specific only to that person unless they have an identical twin. Every cell in your body has the same DNA profile that is unique to that individual.
So In record number 4, you came up with some interpretations. What does that mean?
So when I look at the kind of the picture of that DNA profile, I'll interpret how many people are there and then make comparisons to any known samples and the evidence.
Okay. So in interpretation number 1, you obtained a profile from the Jarvis Butts buccal swab.
Yes, I did.
Okay, and that was sufficient for comparison purposes.
Correct.
What does it mean to be sufficient for comparison purposes?
So the DNA must be above a certain threshold for evidence or references. And in this case, that DNA profile was all above that threshold, and it can then be compared to evidence.
Okay. And the interpretation number 2, you obtained a DNA profile from ID card swabs, but that was insufficient for comparison purposes.
Correct. The amount of DNA there was just too low and did not make it above that threshold, so I couldn't do anything with it or compare it to anything.
Okay. So you can say there's DNA there, but you can't compare it to anything.
Correct.
Okay. And that was the entire substance of record number 4. Is that fair?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The amount of DNA there was just too low and did not make it above that threshold, so I couldn't do anything with it or compare it to anything.
Okay. So you can say there's DNA there, but you can't compare it to anything.
Correct.
Okay. And that was the entire substance of record number 4. Is that fair?
Correct.
Okay. In record number 5, what evidence did you analyze in record number 5?
I received earbuds that were submitted as a possible alternate known. Fabric mattress pad cover cuttings, plastic mattress cover piece. That's it.
And these earbuds, alternate known. What does it mean? What does alternate known mean?
When there isn't a known sample from an individual, occasionally they can bring in, an agency could bring in an alternate known. Usually this would be a toothbrush or something that you knew belonged to them, a comb or something along those lines. And then we could use that as an alternate known for that individual as their known sample.
Okay, so as opposed to there's a straight buccal swab from them or a hair strand from them.
Generally, buccal swabs or blood samples are used as references
Okay.
or known samples.
And in this case, do you know what alternate known you received?
There's an alternate reference known possibly for the victim in the case.
Okay. Would an alternate known, could that also be like a blood card from the birth?
Yes, that there are blood spot cards taken at birth that can be obtained from hospitals to be used as known samples.
Okay, so that'd be a known sample.
Correct.
Okay. And your results in this case, in your interpretations, you stated there was a DNA profile obtained from the earbud swabs that was not sufficient for comparison purposes. Is that the same thing that you were saying?
Strong support the other way, or you could have just moderate support or just limited support, which would be just a little bit of a tilt, or they can be fully excluded from the sample. So in this case, it was 4.6 thousand times more likely that it originated from those 4 unrelated individuals than Jarvis Butts and 3 other individuals, which is moderate support that he's not a contributor. So it's tilting that way, just not all the way.
And in record number 8, what evidence did you analyze here?
I received black hoodie stain swabs, another set of black hoodie stain swabs, black hoodie swabs, pink bodysuit stain swabs, pink bodysuit swabs, as well as Najai Harris blood card.
Okay. Now, what kind of testing did you do in record number 8?
The same as the previous records.
Okay, and that's autosomal DNA?
Yes.
Okay. Now, going through this, you were able to have a sufficient amount of DNA for comparison for Ms. Harris's blood card?
Correct.
Okay. And in your first or your second interpretation, this is as it relates to black hoodie stain swabs. But this is the 5AD stain swabs. What were your hypotheses here?
So I determined that there were 2 individuals in that black hoodie stain swab, the first one, 5AD. And if I would compare each of the known individuals to the sample. So initially it would be Jarvis Butts and one unrelated unknown contributor, and then on the other hypothesis would be 2 unrelated unknown contributors. So based on those results from the black hoodie stain swabs, it was approximately 460 times more likely if it originated from Jarvis Butts and an unknown contributor than if it was from 2 unrelated unknown contributors. And this provides moderate support that Jarvis Butts is a contributor to the black hoodie stain swabs.
And then you said you did one for Jarvis Butts, and you did one for Messiah Harris.
Correct. So when comparing Messiah Harris, it's approximately 3.7 million times more likely if it originated from Messiah Harris and 1 unrelated contributor than if it were from 2 unrelated unknown contributors. And this provides very strong support that Messiah Harris is a contributor to the black hoodie stain swabs.
And interpretation 3, this is the second of the black hoodie stain swabs, 5BD. When they're separated like that, when you have like 5BD and 5AD, does that tell you that they're different parts that are being swabbed, different areas?
Generally, it will be 2 different stains on the same item, but the person that actually took those swabs, they would best be able to describe where they were collected from.
Okay. So as it relates to 5BD, the black hoodie stain swabs, what did you find there?
That was 1 individual in that sample, and it genetically typed as female.
And so if that's the case, what was your hypothesis then?
So comparing Messiah Harris to that sample, it was 3.6 octillion times more likely if it originated from Messiah Harris than if it was from an unrelated unknown contributor. And this provides very strong support that Messiah Harris is the contributor to that black hoodie stain swab. And then I compare Jarvis Butts as well, and he's excluded from it to his single source samples.
Okay, and would that be because you found that it was only from 1 individual genetically typed as female?
Correct, yeah. When comparing him, he was excluded.
Okay. And when you say octillion, I'm not a math person, how many zeros is that?
That is 27 zeros.
Okay. And in interpretation number 4, we have just black hoodie swabs, and that's 5CD. And you have two analyses here, one with Jarvis and one with Messiah. What did you find as it relates to the comparison with Jarvis?
So the black hoodie swabs, generally these are taken to see who may have possibly worn it, or skin cells opposed to stain swabs. So I determined that this was from 3 individuals. There were 3 individuals in that sample, and at least one of them genetically typed as male. And when comparing it to Jarvis Butts, it was approximately 2.1 million times more likely if it originated from Jarvis Butts and 2 unrelated unknown contributors than if it originated from 3 unrelated unknown contributors. And this provides very strong support that Jarvis Butts is a contributor to the black hoodie swabs.
And you interpreted the pink bodysuit, just regular swabs of it. And you determined that there was 2 individuals, at least one was typed as male.
Correct.
Tell me your comparison with Jarvis Butts.
It was 24 trillion times more likely if it originated from 2 unrelated unknown contributors than if it originated from Jarvis Butts and 1 unrelated unknown contributor. And this provides very strong support that Jarvis Butts is not a contributor to the pink bodysuit swabs.
And you had said previously, just the swabs of items, you said they're more related to like a wearer ID type thing?
Generally, if it's possible stain, blood stain, semen stain, it'll have the word stain. When it's just swabs of, generally it is just swabs looking for who was possibly wearing that item. But I did not take the swab, so
Fair
that
enough.
person would be able to tell exactly.
And for the comparison with Neziah Harris, what did you find there?
It was 150 sextillion times more likely if it originated from Neziah Harris and one unrelated unknown contributor than if it was originated from two unrelated unknown contributors, which is very strong support that Neziah Harris is a contributor to the pink.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So when you receive the swabs, you said in separate tubes, each swab or cutting or whatever you would be testing comes in a separate tube,
Correct.
and it's all labeled with a number that corresponds with the file that you're working on. Is that correct?
Correct. Each one has its own ID, yes.
Okay. And what other communication do you receive with those swabs?
We have submission paperwork, and that is in our system loaded, as well as all of the worksheets from the analysis that we go through. There's chain of custody. I mean, all this is within our system, but we only receive that initial information when we submit it, that paperwork. Occasionally we'll have a police report or something, but in this case I didn't see one.
You didn't have one in this case?
I did not have one in my case file.
Did you have any communication with Sergeant Shannon Jones before you did the testing?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Did you know, was there a name associated with this file that you knew of before you did the testing?
There are, like I said, names within the case file. Generally, we process samples in batches and we don't really look at all that before we get started until we sit down to actually write the case, and those profiles are already complete.
Okay, and I'm gonna try to get some information from you just on how that process works, because I have a limited understanding of DNA, so correct me when I mess up. But as I understand it, when you're running these samples, essentially you come up with, ultimately for interpretation, kind of a line that shows peaks, and that is those are the things that you're comparing. Is that fair to say?
So we look at 24 different areas within the DNA, and 2 of those will just give me the sex of the individual, if they're male or female, if there's a male included. On the other 22, it will be 2 like peaks basically at each location, and you'll have either 1 or 2 each individual.
And there could also be other peaks. So typically you have some that are taller than others, but you could also have shorter peaks. Is that fair to say?
If there's multiple people in that sample, I'll see maybe several peaks, and that's how I would determine how many individuals are in that sample.
Or things that you might interpret as, like, I think they call it stutter.
We possibly, it's a kind of a normal part of this system. There are these peaks that are expected, and they generally are filtered out. Occasionally they get a little high, but we know what they are. So.
And I was going to say, so then when you see this chart, is that part of your interpretation to kind of exclude that as something of significance?
The starter peaks?
Yes.
Yes. I would evaluate if any of those peaks could possibly be stutter or not.
Okay. And I think you answered this, but I just want to make sure. How many loci did you test?
There's 24 total.
And that's what you tested?
Correct.
Okay. And that's of like the 3 million base pairs that exist, fair to say? I mean, there's 150,000 loci in the human genome, correct? Is that right?
Yeah, this is the standard for forensics testing, yes.
It's 24. And so I think you indicated in almost all the things that you tested, there were mixed samples, except for the 2 initial, the buccal swab and the ID card. Is that fair to say? More than one contributor?
Yes, except for the mattress stain swabs, I believe was a single contributor. Otherwise, yes,
Okay.
more than one individual.
on the black hoodie swab, the non-stain swab, I think your report indicates, or your testimony was, that there were 3 contributors. Is that correct?
I just wanted to kind of double check to be sure.
Of course. Yep. Are you going to refer to your report to do that?
Yes, my report.
Okay.
So the second, the 5BD,
Yes.
5BD was only one individual, female.
I'm sorry. I guess I'm looking at.
The hoodie swab's not the stain, you said?
Correct,
Yes,
yes.
that was, I determined to be 3 individuals present.
Okay. And I think your report says that at least one was male.
Correct. I can't determine how many males, just that at least one is male because there was a Y in the sample.
Okay. So fair to say there could have been 2 male contributors and 1 non-male, 1 female contributor.
Yeah, all I know is it's at least one in those 3.
Okay. Now, is it the program that determines the statistical number, the probability, or how is that determined?
I determine how many individuals are in the sample, and then the software determines that likelihood ratio.
Okay. Because you're only receiving swabs or cuttings, you don't actually see pictures of what the items are that the stains came from or the swabs came from. Is that fair to say? Or do you?
They are in the case file. I did see them in this case. So sometimes I'll look at them, and sometimes I'll just write the report unless there's a need to see them. They're not always provided, but
Do those pictures indicate to you where the different samples might have been taken from, or the swabs may have been taken from?
yes, the pictures in this case were taken by the previous analysts that provided the samples to me. So she examined the evidence itself, took the pictures, as well as where any swabs or cuttings were taken.
So the previous analyst would be testing for genetic material in general. Is that fair to say, like saliva, blood, semen, stuff like that? She's the one
Yes.
that's making that determination.
Yes, she would do any body fluid testing, such as blood, semen, saliva, and then any swabs of just for skin cells.
Okay. DNA can degrade over time, fair to say?
Over time and in certain conditions, sure.
Weather, stuff like that,
Potentially as sunlight can degrade DNA.
the elements in general, bacteria.
Yes,
Okay. And so when it degrades, does that mean that the DNA molecule itself is breaking down?
yes, it's degrading, yeah.
And what is the impact of that on a DNA test?
It could just be lower than it would have been. So there's still a profile, it's just lower. We also see a very specific pattern when something is degraded, where it, instead of peaks kind of being nice and straight, they kind of ski slope off. So we can identify it.
Okay. Could it mean that you get an incomplete or a partial profile?
Sure, yeah.
Was that a factor at all in any of the swabs that you tested in this case?
I didn't see any very specific, that pattern that I was talking about, I didn't see that. Some of the samples are lower, so they may have been possibly, if they were in the elements, degraded or diluted.
So you mentioned that when you're looking at a profile, if you see a Y chromosome, that indicates to you that there's a male contributor to that sample.
Correct.
And the least amount of words possible. And so if you have a mixed sample, you can do, or one of the ways to determine the male profile would be to use a Y-STR analysis. Is that correct?
Yes, we do offer testing that specifically looks at only that Y chromosome in our lab, and I don't perform that testing personally.
Somebody else would perform that?
Yeah, so when we need it, they will perform it, yes.
And what would indicate or what would determine when that would be needed? in your lab?
Generally, it's in samples where it's a mixture usually from a female, let's say a body swab, and there's so much of her DNA, it's overwhelming the small amount of male DNA present. So they can do this testing to only look at that Y chromosome so that that large amount of female DNA kind of isn't in the way.
And so this would be done for something like skin cells or saliva or some DNA, some genetic material that's not specific to males. Is that correct? Like you wouldn't need to do that kind of a test on semen or something that's only going to come from a male.
It's any sample where there's just an a large amount of female DNA, but a very small amount of male DNA is generally when we use the testing.
Okay. Would you use it if there were multiple suspected male contributors?
I don't want to speak to that test, like when we would use it, since I don't do it.
Okay. Is it possible to use that, or would that be helpful? It's in general.
I have no idea.
Okay. You're not familiar with?
No, I mean, I have the basic understanding, but since I don't actually perform it and I'm not trained in it, I don't want to speak to it.
Okay. Is it the Y chromosome DNA, is that passed down to male offspring?
But the male profile, so you're talking about the YSTR profile, it would be the same?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. From a father to a son?
Correct.
Okay. And that's the Y star DNA, right? The
Yes.
Y short tandem repeat.
Correct, yes.
And so you could have a similar Y star profile between a father and a son because that chromosome is being passed down almost completely unchanged. Is that fair to say? Or is it correct scientifically?
I mean, scientifically, they would have the same, without any mutations, that father and son would have the same Y profile.
Okay.
But in autosomal testing, they would not.
And when you were doing your testing on these samples, you had two known profiles, correct?
Correct.
You were testing against Jarvis Butts,
Correct.
yes, and Messiah Harris.
That's correct.
You weren't testing it against any other males.
No other references were submitted to us for comparisons.
Okay. So a DNA test obviously can't tell you when DNA was deposited on an item. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And it can't say how it came to be put there, right?
Correct.
Like it could be there's primary DNA, right? If I cut myself and I get blood on my shirt, that would be a primary transfer, right?
Yes.
If I then touch something and get blood on that, then the blood that's on say it's on my paper, the blood that's on the paper then would be a secondary transfer.
Yeah, like from your shirt?
Yes.
Correct.
Or say if I hand my pen to Mr. Riggins here, and then he hands it to somebody else, that would be a third. Is that correct?
It's the transfer of the DNA. So I touch this primary, then you come and touch it, and my DNA that would be secondary, and tertiary would be then that DNA moves again. Of course, each time DNA is transferred, it's lower and lower generally.
Okay. And so then if Mr. Riggins walks away with my pen and leaves it in another room and somebody picks up that pen and uses it, in theory they could be tested and have my DNA on them, correct?
Possibly.
Even if we were never in the same room together.
Correct.
Okay. Transfer can occur also even like in a washing machine, right?
Possibly.
So if clothes are washed together, which is kind of illogical, right? You're washing something, but in reality, my clothes and Mr. Riggins' clothes could be washed together, and his DNA could transfer onto my clothes just by virtue of being washed in the same cycle.
Correct.
Okay. Wait just a second.
anything else. Thank you.
Yes. Just briefly. You asked some questions about YSTR testing. Would it be fair to say that that's kind of like a secondary test you would do if nothing comes up in autosomal DNA testing?
Correct. That's when we look at that type of testing, is when we don't get results with autosomal.
And is that because in autosomal testing would be a direct match as opposed to just a match on a Y chromosome?
Yeah, to a Y profile that is shared. Yeah.
Okay. So in these reports, you had known samples from Neziah Harris and known samples from Jarvis Butts.
Correct.
Okay. And they were direct autosomal matches to Jarvis Butts.
Well, we don't use match.
Yeah.
We might compare them directly. Yes.
They were direct comparisons to Jarvis Butts' DNA.
Correct.
Okay. And so I believe, as you said, he would share Y DNA with his biologically related male children.
Correct.
But his X DNA would not be the same as his biologically related male children.
No, we get half our DNA from our mom, half our DNA from our father. So that's what makes up your DNA profile.
So if he has a male son, their DNA would not compare. It would only be compared comparatively to the Y chromosomes, not the X chromosome.
Yes. So father and son, they would not have the same profile, but they would have the same Y profile, which is not the testing that was done in this case.
Right. This was direct autosomal comparison.
Correct.
Okay. And is it fair to say that people shed or produce or leave DNA at different rates?
Yes, everyone is different. How much DNA you leave behind when you touch something. Things like blood, semen, saliva, we would expect there to be more DNA present in those types of samples versus just touching something in skin cells.
And another thing that always bothered me, but I never touched on it, is when the judge started talking at the end of the preliminary. And she mentioned Joyce. Who the fuck is Joyce? And it's a M case. But we've never heard of another M case when it pertains to Jarvis. But this case is supposed to be only for Neziah. Where did Joyce... I think they made a slip up. I'm not going to say my thoughts like I said in the beginning, because something is going on. Something is fishy. And they playing on everybody. They playing on the public. Because who is Joyce and why is she being mentioned as an M case in Neziah's M case? Y'all listen to this.
And the one thing I had highlighted in pink is the quote, "In this case, there was no physical evidence such as bloodstains or a weapon leaking defendant to Joyce's death. In this case, we don't have the same facts or circumstances." I do agree this is a circumstantial case, and circumstantial evidence is sufficient for a bind over and even conviction. Today is January 9th, 2025, exactly 1 year, from the day Neziah Harris disappeared. Before I get into the charges, and the main charge of premeditated first-degree murder, I have to speak on Neziah Harris and the community who failed her.
We bringing the news. Facts stay sharp, yeah, we never confuse. From the streets to the world, keep it real, no cap. You're breaking headlines, put the truth on the map. Call it peace. We bringing the news. Facts stay sharp, yeah, we never confuse.